Title: The Simple Truth Int. Living room. Day. A young boy named Timmy sits cross-legged on the floor, reading a Dr. Seuss book. His mother, Mrs. Parker, enters the room with a puzzled look on her face. Mrs. Parker, Timmy, can you help me with something? I've been trying to solve this complicated math problem, but I can't figure it out. Timmy looks up from his book, intrigued. Timmy. Sure, Mom. Let me take a look. Mrs. Parker hands Timmy a sheet of paper with a complex equation scribbled on it. Timmy studies it for a moment and then smiles. Timmy. Sometimes the questions are complicated, but the answers are simple. Mrs. Parker raises an eyebrow, curious about Timmy's confidence. Mrs. Parker. Really? How can it be simple? Timmy. Well, Mom, let me explain. Imagine you have a delicious pie, and you want to share it equally among 4 friends. How would you do it? Mrs. Parker ponders for a moment. Mrs. Parker. I'd cut the pie into 4 equal slices, of course. Timmy, exactly. You just simplified a complex problem into a simple solution. Math is like that too. You break it down step by step until you find the answer. Mrs. Parker's face brightens with understanding. Mrs. Parker. I see what you mean now, Timmy. It's all about breaking down the problem and finding the simple steps to reach the solution. Timmy. That's right, Mom. And sometimes, when we're faced with complicated questions in life, we can apply the same approach. We break them down into smaller, more manageable parts and find the simple answers within them. Mrs. Parker's eyes light up, realizing the broader implications of Timmy's words. Mrs. Parker. You're absolutely right, Timmy. We often get caught up in the complexity of our problems and forget that the solutions can be straightforward if we approach them with simplicity. They exchange smiles, their bond strengthening through the power of understanding. XT Park. Day. Timmy and Mrs. Parker sit on a park bench, enjoying the warm sunlight. Timmy. So, Mom, remember that complicated math problem you asked me about? Let's break it down together. They grab a pen and paper, working on the problem side by side. They take each step slowly, simplifying the process as they go. In-tea living room. Night. Timmy and Mrs. Parker sit at the kitchen table, finishing the math problem. They share a triumphant smile as they arrive at the simple answer. Timmy. See, Mom? Complicated questions can have simple answers. We just have to keep it simple and take it one step at a time. Mrs. Parker hugs Timmy tightly, grateful for his wisdom and the reminder to approach life's challenges with simplicity. Mrs. Parker. Thank you, Timmy. You've taught me a valuable lesson today. Sometimes the questions are complicated, and the answers are simple.